All right, guys, so I'm building a bench, trying to joint a couple of 1x8s that I've, or sorry, 2x8s that I've ripped down. I'm really struggling with getting that joint good. My jointer is not working well right now. I need to do some work on that. So in the meantime, I'm going to knock together a quick jointing jig for the table saw that I think is going to work real well. I'm going to make it out of this piece of hardwood, laminate plywood. There was a shelf that came out of my entertainment center that I picked up for free. So I'm going to cut this down. I'm going to rip down a piece. I'm going to cut a piece of 3/4 that I can sit in this miter slot right here. Then I have a face here that will be inset a little, the blade will be inset a little bit into, so I can push it into that. The blade will just cut a little bit off at a time and then step out here. It'll be just like a jointer, but it'll be a table saw. So I'm gonna rip this down right now. I think I've got it set at 8 inches just for the base plate. And I'll be able to put a piece of this 3/4 on the side here. All right, so I'm just gonna glue this and hit it with a few brad nails to hold that in there. And then I'll set it up on there, get it lined. I'll cut a little piece of this 3/4 to go in the miter slot just to hold it. I didn't want to have something that was screwed or fixed onto my table saw fence. And this is something that I'll be able to use for every future project. I just take it off, store it, put it back in. It'll always be lined up with the miter slot. I always have a little cutout for the table saw here. And I'll have to put some sort of shim on the back side that'll come out even with the table saw blade. But I'll show you that when we get there. For now, I'm just gonna glue it, screw it, make sure that it's all square. I may put some blocking in just to make sure that it holds square. And then I'll cut my miter slot and put that in. So I forgot to mention, make sure that you don't shoot, if you're gonna screw it or nail it or screw it, whatever, make sure that you don't put any of those in the area that your blade's gonna be. Otherwise you're gonna be cutting in the metal and could potentially ruin your blade. So this is pretty square. I'll let that glue dry just for a little bit. I may put a block in there. This feels pretty sturdy. So if I find that it's getting out of square, I'll put a block in there. Otherwise I'm gonna leave it as it is. So I'm kind of in a hurry. I want to get this table finished. All right, guys. So miter saw, the miter slots on the table saw are either just a little bit bigger than 3/4 or this plywood is just a little bit smaller, but there's a little bit of side to side in this that I don't want to have in there. So I found just the right tool to take care of that, and that's a couple of these. It's the only use I've ever found for Pokemon cards, so I snuck a few out of Franklin's. I only took the energy ones. He had lots of those. I didn't take his valuable ones, and he'll never know. But I'm going to cut these strips down and shim this so that it won't have any side to side movement. And then I'll be able to attach this to the bottom of my jointer sled. I'll probably glue these on there so that they're permanently fixed. And then I'll be able to cut my slot with my saw blade and be ready to joint some lumber. So this is just proud of the surface of my table saw. I used some pennies, tried to use some washers. I didn't have any that were quite tall enough to use some pennies. Of course, it's the only use that I found for pennies too. But now I'm gonna just put some super glue on this. I'm gonna get my fence, I'm gonna lower my saw blade and I'm gonna set my fence right on top of it. And then I'll butt that up to my fence to make sure that it's square while that super glue dries, and then I'll put a couple of screws in from the bottom once it's cured enough that it's not going to come off. All right, while that cures, that could have been done probably a lot quicker with double-sided tape, where you just put the double-sided tape on the miter, the piece that goes in the miter slot, and then put the fence down on it. I could already pull it up and be putting screws in it to hold it. But I don't have any. I've had super glue, and even it wasn't the greatest. Now I'll get this fence out of the way. See how well we did. Not very good. I have to make some adjustments. Let's see if it's still flexible enough to move. I hope so. Probably not. Oh yeah. Good thing. Yeah, that's more where I want it. Gotta love slow drying super glue. Let's recheck it out. Yeah, that's much better. Table saw needs a little work. I need to stop and do some maintenance on it. All right, so now what I'm going to do is, while that dries, I got these dumbbells on there. It's not going to go anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and turn my saw on, and I'm going to raise it up, you know, at least probably 1 3/4 where it will cut out a relief in this fence. So when I join my boards, as I come along here, it'll cut off a 1/16 of an inch or something like that in there. And then I'll have to find something that's the same distance as the blade to glue or screw to this, so that as the board slides out, it'll be in relief there. All right, I got it back in there. Everything's set up. I didn't want to sacrifice and cut off my perfectly good yardstick if this wasn't going to work, was why I left it, you know, extended out there long on the end. If it does work and I like it, I'll just sacrifice this one and go to Harbor Freight and get another one. That's like $1 or something, but kind of like the thing. The way that it works is this face is, you know, the depth of the yardstick less. So each pass through, it's going to take off that much material, and hopefully joint this into a straight piece of lumber. So let's give it a test run. Well, this was a piece of pallet lumber And I didn't check it beforehand for how straight it was, but I mean, it's a piece of pallet lumber. It couldn't have been that straight. But that worked out pretty well. And that's flush and touching my table all the way down. So I'm gonna run a piece of this 2x8 through there and see if I can get it straightened out. Well, it's not perfectly jointed, but it's far better than what it was. Like I can pull that together when I clamp it. I could probably get all of that out, but I don't want to, continue taking material off my boards when I'm already at 11.5 inches. I would wind up being, 11 inches or something like that. So what originally started as 14-inch plan is now down to 11.5 inches. But that's okay. That still would fit somebody's bottom on it. So moving on with the project.